Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. The top 10 fastest growing economies in the world are Bhutan, Ethiopia, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, India, Uzbekistan, Myanmar, Tanzania, Laos and Djibouti. This is according to calculations made by the Nasdaq, the largest electronic equities exchange in the United States. This quantifiable growth, despite the lack of infrastructure, political instability, poverty and other challenges plaguing this continent, supports the Africa Rising narrative that optimists have been singing for quite some time now. Perhaps loudest of all has been Kenyan intellectual, legal expert and scholar Professor Patric Otiena Lumumba, whose rousing speeches across the continent and strong stance during his stint as the director of Kenya's Anti-Corruption Commission has garnered him a lot of attention. He consistently campaigns for Africans to stay and fight the good fight for their home countries, instead of looking for greener pastures elsewhere, adamant that the opportunities are to be found right here. On tonight's special edition of First Issues, we present a full-length discussion with this gifted speaker on his prescriptions for members of the business community within Africa, asking him what unique challenges he has identified for the corporate boardrooms and business people on this continent.
One of the things that stands out is economic policies. Where there is lack of clarity of policies in different sectors, it does hamper lawmaking because law is born out of policy positions. So quite a number of participants or players in the private sector will complain about lack of clarity in the legal arena, lack of proper and effective dispute resolution mechanisms. There is also the talk that certain taxation regimes are not clear. And of course, there is also bureaucracy and corruption, among other things, that stand in the way of effective implementation of certain decisions that are made, and sometimes repatriation of profits in some countries. So these factors conjoined serve to undermine the economic sector in a number of African countries. That is not to say that they are not being addressed, but they do present problems.
That being said, what type of corporate or boardroom leader do you think is called for at this time?
I think the boardroom leader that one needs in Africa is one who is a visionary, who is a strategic thinker, who knows that the world is fundamentally a global village, that what happens here in Havaianas in Botswana has direct implications on what is happening in Johannesburg, in South Africa, or Nairobi, Kenya. So that awareness informs that leader that the decisions made are not only local, but have global implications, and that therefore the externalities that will affect their decisions will also undermine the efficacy of their business. That leader must also be a collegiate leader who knows that teamwork is at the very heart of sustainable success. That leader must be an institution builder whose agenda is to create a legacy that is sustainable. That leader must know that human resource is the most important resource, and that when you take care of human resource, half of your journey is complete. That leader must be one that knows that diversification of engagement in the economic arena is what underpins true success, and that leader must be one that allows workers to realize their potential within the environment that they create. That to me is the ideal leader in the board today.
What do we see as a reality though?
The reality is that in quite a number of institutions we have very short-term leaders, people who are in the business world, and the question that they ask is, what is in it for me in the short term? And when you have individuals such as those, it means that they don't build institutions. It means that they are interested in acquiring profit through using all manner of avenues in ways that are not sustainable. You have individuals who are not team players, prima donnas, who wants to be the ones that are sung, and people who don't care about the sustainability of the institution that they run. And if they are of such a kind, it means that they build institutions which collapse very quickly. And that is a tragic thing. And there are leaders who don't even recognize that the human resource is the most important resource. And therefore, they don't take care of the work environment in a manner that energizes those people who are serving under them. And those leaders, in my view, are a curse to institutions in Africa. And that is why progressively you see that many institutions in Africa are not realizing their potential, because we have these individuals who are not conscious of what really energizes the institution that they lead.
Speaking of the world being a global market, you've often spoken of your disdain for Africans leaving the continent in pursuit of the American or Western dream. Isn't this speaking against global integration? Shouldn't we be looking outside to learn best practice and that kind of thing?
If our agenda is to go to the United States of America or Europe or indeed Asia to acquire skills and to come back home and utilize them for the benefit of Africa, then I have no problem. But many of the individuals who are going to Europe and America are actually running away. They say that Africa is not an environment where I want to work. So they are essentially economic refugees who think that nothing can happen in Africa. But yet I believe that Africa is the land of opportunity. I believe that Africa is virgin in many areas. If you were to choose quite a number of areas, look at the agro-industry, for example. If we go into the arena of food science technology and we simply choose to add value, this is the place to be. And look at the young market. We are a market of nearly 22 billion. In SADC alone, you possibly are a market of nearly 300 million. So this is the place to be. If you look at the entire arena of pharmaceutical industry, we are importing all our drugs from Europe, America, India, and China progressively. We call our own medicine alternative medicine. Couldn't we be doing that here? In a nutshell, I'm saying that the African must realize that Africa needs her best men and women now, and that even when they choose to go out there, they must do so acutely aware that it is for a short period and they are coming back to build Africa. And deliberate effort must be made by governments to bring our best labor back home so that we are able to harness the resources that are resident at home. It is not right that we now have other civilizations coming into Africa and doing the things which our sons and daughters can do, and they are doing, engage some of them in very menial labor in Europe and America, and therefore underemployed, underachieving, unhappy, and generally dejected, living from one paycheck to the other. That is not something to be admired or to be celebrated.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
As our discussion continues, he goes on to speak of the need for the commercialization of African medicine, sports, motor vehicle industry, and so on. Ideas that we ourselves have explored on the program in the past. Clearly, in some respects, he is a man after our own heart.
I believe in a number of things. That every country has realized our potential by recognizing things that must be ring-fenced for the country. There are certain things that you cannot, as a foreigner, do in China. They say this is for the Chinese. Japan, the same thing. India, the same thing. Europe, the same thing. In Africa, everything goes. The Chinese in many African countries are now even in retail business selling linen and curtains. And I'm saying that Africans must innovate. Why is it that 50 years after independence, our women must use perfume made by Hugo Boss, Tommy Hilfiger, Carolina Herrera, and many others? I want to see you and other Africans who are in this sector producing perfume. So that, because that is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I'm very happy with the South Africans that they are now one of the leading exporters of wine. That the export of South African wine is possibly bigger than the economy of Lesotho and Swaziland and Burundi combined. And that is a good thing. Look at the sports industry. It's a multi-million-dollar industry. The football industry in Europe is a multi-billion-dollar industry. The baseball industry. Why can't we, the 54 African countries, why can't we have a league that generates the kind of resources that is generated by the English Premier League or La Liga or Bundesliga, while we are celebrating the others? We can do it, and those are the avenues via which we can create jobs. We now have a company that is involving young Africans in betting called Betway, and our young Africans are betting their lives thinking that they will win some lottery one day. Why can't we do these things? And I'm saying that is doable. Here in Botswana, even if it is not doable within Botswana, within SADC, you can make sports an industry. And then once you do that, many things happen. Sports medicine becomes a profession that people can pursue. Sports psychology becomes something that people can pursue. So when I say some of these things, I'm simply saying that sometimes we behave as if we don't have opportunity, as if we don't have ability. When you fly many African airlines and you see butter from Denmark, for God's sake, I want to see butter from Botswana. You see beef from Brazil. I want to see beef from Namibia. You see cereal from Pakistan. Surely I want to see cereal from Malawi. Because it is only by doing that that we are going to make sure that young men and women in Africa are employed. And lastly, look at the motor vehicle industry. You and me, when Europe and America, particularly Europe, America, and Japan and Asia have used and enjoyed their cars, then they export them to us. Look at the textile industry. The second-hand clothing industry is one that has killed textile all the way from Kaduna in Nigeria to Nairobi in Kenya, while we could have cotton growing and textile industry booming. We are 2 billion of us who want to be dressed up. How many jobs can be created if we did that? How many bed sheets could we be making for our hotels instead of importing them from India? When we say these things, we are simply saying every country must now look at those areas and do something that is going to help our economy so that we don't complain about unemployment. We create employment. When Vasco da Gama set off from Portugal in the 14th century, they were going to look for spices in India, just spices in India. Africans must be curious, and our curiosity must be the curiosity that helps us achieve our ambition. Africans must be dreamers, but we must wake up to work for those dreams. And I believe that that is happening, and I'm beginning to see efforts in that direction. We could do better. I'm happy with what the Ethiopians are doing with power generation. I'm happy with what the Rwandese are doing. You are complaining, but at a different level, but certain good things are happening. I'm happy with what is happening in Namibia. Many countries, even Kenya with our solar energy. Things are beginning in Tanzania, of course, Ghana with Nana Akufo-Addo. Many good things are beginning to happen in Africa. And those are the stories that I want to begin telling. We have lamented for too long. We have complained for too long. Time has come that we must now begin to do things and celebrate our little victories in the hope that they will accumulate and make us be proud Africans.
Isn't it a case that we're looking sometimes at best practice? When we speak of, yes, investing in our own football, right now, world best are leagues like La Liga and UEFA. And right now, some of the best textiles are elsewhere, isn't it a case of us developing goods or even human capital that is competitive at a global stage? Speaking of wines in South Africa, they do still have wines from all over the world.
Absolutely.
But they've perfected and they have created an industry that is competitive on the global stage.
I can't agree with you more. That when one is talking about participation in the world economic arena, one is not going to say that you shut out. I'm saying have products that are going to compete, so that if there is Castle Beer in South Africa, which is the market leader, I believe, in South Africa and in most of the SADC, we are not saying that Heineken or Budweiser will not come here, but we are saying that when Budweiser and Heineken come here, they can only take 10% of the market, because the local product is as good as it can be anywhere in the world. And I'm saying, therefore, that when we engage in these things, we love La Liga and all, but also create a league that can be of the same stature. Look at China during our lifetime, and I'm saying this ad nauseum, that China did not produce a single mobile phone 20 years ago. The leaders were Nokia, the leaders were BlackBerry and iPhone. Today, out of every 10 mobile phone, it will be possibly 5 are Chinese. If it is not Huawei, it is Techno. If it is not Techno, it is Infinix. What did they do? Look at these products, reverse engineer them, add a little value, and now they are some of the market leaders. Look at the heavy vehicle industry, Chinese lorries, Chinese everything. The Chinese have demonstrated that you can engage with other technology for a time, but the engagement is time-bound. We are going to engage with them, we are going to utilize them as we prepare for our own. Right now, the Chinese are about to enter into the commercial airline arena through a middle-sized jet, so that they will be flying their own airline.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world. Because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
It is time for SME Essentials. This segment represents a partnership between First Issues and the First National Bank of Botswana to educate both existing and aspiring entrepreneurs on the importance of planning and to therefore encourage the growth of the very important SME sector. As we were told last week, a good plan will improve your ability to secure financing and the bank's ability to gauge the viability of your business idea. Tonight we learn that when crafting a plan, the background or overview must have the core selling points of the venture that will encourage a potential financier to want to read further and learn the specifics of the plan.
One very important thing that one has to put together in a business plan or in your plan is to provide a background. Because in this instance, the person who's going to read your business plan doesn't know you. He's not there. He's not been there. So they don't know anything about your business plan. So a bit of background is important. And it's also very important to know what should go into the background. So the background will cover things such as the ownership of the company, when was it established, the directorship in terms of who's the shareholder. It will cover the products and services. What product and services do you provide? It will cover your goals and objectives. When you establish what were the motivating objectives, what do you want to become as a business, what really keeps you going. And it has to also get into your various business mix in terms of by segment. So By mix, I refer to the various products in different types that you provide and the various target markets that you will be serving. Let me give an example. We might be building a construction or building material business, might be saying we have a line where we build trusses for the construction industry. We have a line where we build steel fabrication for the construction as well. We have another section where we do concrete mix and concrete products for the construction industry. And the size of the market might differ. And at the end of the day, there's what you call a percentage contribution. In terms of all these three segments, out of 100, what is their contribution? So our concrete mix products might be the largest contributor in our turnover. So I'll mention that over the years, we've been able to capture 50% of the contract mix. We then introduced the building trusses because our customers needed those. We're currently at 30% of the market. The third product provides 20%. So I can actually visualize what is happening, what the operations look like. So that is very important. They would need to do that. And if you have ever experienced some growth in the past, don't shy away from sharing your success stories. If there are any accolades that you've received, for example, we went to the expo, we were selected the best construction company in the country, or construction material provider in the country. Share those successes because it's motivating. It's also very important to show the management. How is the management structure like? What are the competencies and skills in the management? For example, in the construction, I would say, within our team, we've got a construction engineer, like a civil engineer, we've got a mechanical engineer, we've got an accountant, we've got a marketing person. So as a financier, I'm looking at this and I'm saying, this is a compact team, it's balanced. When it comes to market, there's someone with the relevant expertise to go look for customers. When it comes to construction, there's definitely experts to advise accordingly. Production, you have someone, production expert who looks after that. So I would not get worried that when you're away from the business, things will fall apart. I know that there's continuity, so that's one other element. And you might touch briefly in terms of what are your future goals, where are you going? So that would be a motivation that will be discussed in the rest of your business plan.
In tonight's installation, the BSE educates us on the role of the exchange, explaining what it is they do.
The most common misconception that we see a lot at the BSE is that really most companies are not aware of what the BSE does. So usually, especially on the investment side, you find that investors usually think you need to be wealthy or educated to participate in the activities of the exchange, and that could not be further from the truth, because we see even in other countries, in Botswana, there are some individuals who have benefited from investing in the stock exchange. There are companies who have been able to enjoy growth as part of being listed on the Botswana Stock Exchange.